Good morning, everyone, and happy, what day is it today? Today's Wednesday? Tuesday. I don't know what day it is. Today's Tuesday. It's been a long week. And Chris Cannon, who's joining us live over there, has been bothering me all morning.
Hello.
It's gonna be a fun day. My name is Howard Pinsky. I'm a senior XD evangelist here at Adobe, and today is XD Daily Creative Challenge, day number 6, I wanna say. I think it's day number 6. I'm very flustered this morning. It's been a great morning. I'm excited to be here. We're on day number 6. We've been basically almost 2 weeks of diving into Photoshop and Adobe XD and really exploring how XD can complement your Photoshop UI and UX projects. So if I hop over to my screen, we have our Daily Creative Challenge website, which is behance.net/Daily Creative Challenge. And very quickly, I want to say hi to Ash and Vandam, Sakshi, Natalie. We have Adobe Live, the amazing Gus Spot, which is right over there. DJ Paco's right beside me, fixing lights. How's it going, Paco? Samuel's in the chat, Lee. And also, by the way, Lee and Van Dam are some of our youngest designers participating. I believe they're like 9 and 11 years old. It's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing, keep designing. It's gonna be a great future for you. So here's the Daily Creative Challenge, and we are incorporating Photoshop a little bit, mainly because we want to show that, you know, designers who are using Photoshop for UI and UX work for so many years, like I was doing, that Adobe XD can fit into that workflow to help you prototype, help you do better designing, much faster designing with things like repeat grids, responsive resizes, which you will see today. So on the Daily Creative Challenge, I'm here every single morning at 8:30, and I'm kicking off each template. And today's template, which I'll show you in just a second when I refresh this page, will be creating a landing page for a musician at various sizes using responsive resize. And you'll submit it on Behance once you're finished with the keyword XD Daily Challenge, so we can search Behance and find it and showcase all of your amazing work. And then you have until this Friday, December 21st, to complete the challenges so we can take a look at it. We also have an amazing Slack community. If I hop over here to Slack, we have 9,866 people. We're so close. We're 144, I think, away from 10,000, which is gonna be great. So if you're not on Slack, definitely join us on Slack. The URL is bit.ly/XD Slack. And in a second, it might appear above my head. There it is, bit.ly/XD Slack. Join us there. You can talk, you can introduce yourself, get questions answered if you want. It's a good time. Now for today's challenge, let me refresh the page and scroll down. Here is today's template and challenge. It's to create a responsive landing page for a musician. And you may recognize the musician's name once I get to that in a second. But let me highlight a few challenge entries from yesterday. And Chris Cannon is in the chat. He's also over there staring me down. So welcome everyone who just joined. Anna, Sale, Steve, all these awesome people from all over the world. If you are joining us live, let me know where you're joining from. We are in San Francisco right now, and some of you are in some amazingly cool places. So this one here is by user Extian. I probably mispronounced that, I'm sorry. But I really love the dark theme on this chat application with some of these cool gradients and some indicators. Looks really nice, and there's a little bit of a flow so you can see what what artboards are linked up to what, and there's a little video. Let's play the video. Here we go. So he added stories at the top, which in every application you need stories. I wouldn't be surprised if Adobe XD gets stories one day. Probably not. But he has a contact list, which is sorted alphabetically, which is nice. Using a drag effect to scroll, and some really nice, again, really nice looking gradients on this chat application. Great stuff. Next one is from Aaron, who also kind of grabbed a dark UI for this. Really nice presentation for this chat application. Great gradients. I love nice looking gradients. And another video as well. Chat app, login screen. Nice little touches. And I really like seeing people going above and beyond what we usually show in the mornings at 8:30 in the morning. Because at 8:30 in the morning with half an hour, I can only show so much. So I really love to see designers kind of take what I've shown and take our template and go crazy with it. So good job, Aaron. And then finally we have Natalia, who designed this chat application called Folks Chat. And there is a video. Let me zoom in just a little bit. A little bit of a loading screen done, I would assume, with time transitions. A drag to scroll up and down. Contact list, again, sorted alphabetically, and you'll notice that the A, as she's scrolling down the artboard, is fixed in place. So fixed elements are really nice. And by the way, there was an issue yesterday where showing the fixed button at the bottom. That was because it was grouped with other elements that were not fixed, so I had to move it out of that group, and then it would allow me to fix. So I caught my problem. So there we go. So those are a few challenges from yesterday, and if you are submitting today's challenge, make sure to use the keyword XD Daily Challenge. So let's hop over to Photoshop, and here is our challenge for today. Again, you are designing and prototyping a landing page for a local musician, and in this case, it's DJ Paco, right over there. Little shout out, little Easter egg to our good friend Paco. So we're gonna be using repeat grids, responsive resize, Creative Cloud libraries, and global editing. A lot of stuff we're gonna pack into this little stream. And you know, one thing that I've noticed, let me actually delete this artboard just to show you. Let me delete this one. So you have something like this in Photoshop that you might be working on. And first of all, creating these little repeated elements, this grid at the bottom, isn't always very easy, especially if you're creating a lot of them. You might have 2, you might have 3, you might have 100 of them. And you know, it's a little bit of a time-consuming process. You have to basically import images, clip them into each of these little boxes, change the text, change the color, and if you want to change the color after the fact, you have to go back and change it basically on all the instances. So it's not as quick as it could be, and once we get into Adobe XD, if you're not familiar with repeat grids, you'll definitely see that. But when you want to also create different sized artboards for the same project, what a lot of people might do is, you know, they'll duplicate the artboard over. Let me zoom out a little bit, grab the artboard. Come on. There we go. My Alt key wasn't working. And what you'll do is you'll grab the handle on the side. Come on. There we go. Grab the handle, drag it in to the size that you want, and then you'll have to go through and basically rearrange your entire content, right? So you have to move this over. Let's say I can grab all of these, move these over. This one moved onto the pasteboard. So I'll have to grab this, move it back onto this artboard, and then I noticed that my navigation links disappeared, so I have to grab those, move those over, resize a bunch of things. So in Photoshop, it's not incredibly intuitive how to create different artboards for different size devices. And that's kind of where Adobe XD comes into play. And what you'll see as well is that you can also use Photoshop with your Adobe XD projects, and I'll get to that in a second. So let me hop over to Finder. And here is that exact same PSD file that all of you have provided for you right now. You can download that on Behance. I'm gonna simply drag this down into Adobe XD. It's gonna launch. And if you are on Windows, the drag effect probably won't work dragging into XD. So you'll have to go to the File menu and then open and find that PSD file. So I'm actually going to delete this one. Poof. And we're gonna do a few things. Let's delete these two, and we'll start basically from scratch. So we have a few different elements. We have this shape in the background, which will allow us to house an image. And the reason I like using shapes is because if that shape did not exist, and I'm in Finder, and let's say I want this image here, this is totally DJ Paco, and I'm gonna drag this into Adobe XD, and it's a pretty, usually it's like a very large image, and it is a large image. If I take a look, it is 2,500 pixels wide. So sometimes it just like expands and explodes on the artboard. Then you have to zoom out, find it, resize it, zoom back in. It's not very fun. So what I do is I use an image which acts as a mask. So I can grab this image again, drag it into Adobe XD, and it highlights on the screen. And it's blue right now, which tells me once I drop this image in there, it's going to mask it within that shape. And it just masks it for me. And I can just double click on it and adjust that mask if I wanted to. Move it up, move it down, move it all around. Now, I can change the color of this text very easily. Now for this repeat grid down here, or these elements, I might want to have several of them going across, and I might want several going down the artboard. So instead of duplicating them manually, like we would do in Photoshop and then changing each one, we can actually just create a repeat grid. So I have this entire group selected, and the group was brought over from Photoshop. I'm gonna hit the repeat grid button right over here to the right. And that will add these lovely little handles to the right and to the bottom. And I can drag out, let's say, 3 of them across. And if I hover my mouse in between, my cursor in between any of them, I can just adjust the spacing. And then let's say I might want 3 down as well. I can easily do that. And I can move it so it snaps into the center. There we go. And at this point, I might want the user to be able to scroll down this artboard. So I'm going to turn scrolling on to vertical, and then just drag the artboard down so I can see all of the content. And what you'll notice is we have this blue handle over to the left. That lets me know what the viewport height is. So everything above this handle is going to be visible at all times until scrolling takes place. So if I press play, only that stuff is visible, and then I can scroll down and see the rest. Now the cool thing about Repeat Grid is that you don't have to drag in one image, clip it, drag in another image, clip it, all that stuff. So if I just wanted to, I can grab, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6, we have 6 images. I can't count. And I can just drag these directly onto any one of these squares, and it's automatically going to mask them and fill the entire repeat grid. And the same thing works with text as well, as I showed in, I believe, challenge number 1. We were able to drag a text file directly into Adobe XD, and it just populated the entire repeat grid. And changes also distribute throughout the repeat grid. So let's say I wanted to change the color of this the buy ticket button. So I can, let's say, I'll turn a fill on. What color should we make it? We'll make it nice and red. We'll turn off the border, change the button text to white, and very easily that changes across the entire thing. And I might want to actually save this red color for future use throughout my entire document. So if I go into my assets panel, press the plus button beside colors, it's going to save it there. And the cool thing about that is if I use this elsewhere in my document, it'll update. So I can, let's say I might want on top on home, I'm going to use this color. So I'm going to click on it. Doesn't look that great, but we'll keep it there for now. And maybe I want to change the navigation bar a little bit. 100%. Let's add a little of a background blur. Make this a little bit darker. Just add a nice little touch here. That looks a little bit better. So I have the highlight color here. But if I want to change this across all of my artboards, all I have to do, back in my assets panel, I can right click on it, press edit, and then make that change. And it changes on not only in the repeat grid, but also at the top as well. So that's cool. Now what we can do is we can also use Photoshop in conjunction with Adobe XD. So let's say, for example, I want to make some edits to this image, this hero image at the top before I start using responsive resize. Let me actually drag this image into Photoshop. I'm just gonna make some edits. So I might want, let's say, a black and white filter. Not too bad. Let's add a green filter. That looks pretty good. Not too bad. So what I'm going to do now is I want to save this to my Creative Cloud libraries so I can access it in Adobe XD. So I'm going to go to libraries, and I have a library here with a bunch of music stuff. I'm simply going to select both of these layers in my layers panel and drag them into Creative Cloud, the library. And it's going to take all the layers that I had selected, and it's going to basically place them as one single object within my library. Now, what's cool about that is right now it's probably syncing in the background and doing all its magical stuff. If I go back to Adobe XD, as long as my Wi-Fi connection is working properly, I can go to the File menu and open Creative Cloud Libraries. And let's go ahead and find that exact library. And things are syncing. You'll notice that we have these little spinners going on. And we'll just leave this over here for now while we're working. Oh, there it is. So it's sunk already, not too bad. I can just grab this, drag it into Adobe XD, and we now have our new file, new image at the top. But what's even cooler about this is that if any time I want to make changes to this, within my Creative Cloud libraries from Adobe XD, I can simply right click on it, press edit, and it's gonna reopen up in Photoshop that exact same file. So I can turn off the black and white adjustment layer. I can decrease the opacity just a little bit if I wanted to, give it an interesting effect. And then I save it. All I have to do is press Command S. If I hide Photoshop, you're noticing it's already starting to sync. And once that does sync, it's gonna update throughout however many instances that is on my document, if that makes any sense. Probably didn't. So now what I wanna do, now that I have the image at the top, I have the repeat grid, there it goes, it updated. I have the repeat grid. I may want to have another version for a smaller display size. So I'm gonna simply Command or Control D with the artboard selected to duplicate it. And instead of doing it the old-fashioned way, kind of like we were trying to do in Photoshop, where you grab the artboard, make it smaller, then you have to move things around, the text is, no one wants to deal with that. What we have in Adobe XD is responsive resize. So right over here to the right, we have this lovely switch, which by default on artboards is turned off. That just allows users to, resize the artboard and not have to worry about things moving by, on their own. So with that turned on, you're basically telling Adobe XD that when I resize the artboard, you want it to also move the elements as well. So I'm gonna simply grab the right side and move it inwards. And you're noticing all of our elements are moving nicely across the artboard responsively. And the idea isn't to, it's probably not gonna ever get you 100% of the way, but it's gonna get you about 80%. So you're noticing the navigation items at the top are snapped to the right, and they're moving nicely across the artboard. And the logo at the left is staying put. And because we had this repeat grid snapped to the center of our document, just like that, it's also snapped. And if you wanted to override some of this stuff, you can also go to responsive resize over here with an object selected, press manual, and you can have the height fixed, the width fixed. And what's cool about that is right now, if I pull this outwards, you're noticing that it's basically creating new repeated elements. But if you didn't want that, you can also go in and fix the width. And if I drag that outwards, it's not. So there's a lot of constraints and flexibility based on what you're really looking for. And you're noticing if I fix the width, it's snapping to the right. So if I go back here, turn off fix width, go back over here and shrink this inwards. There we go. Let me turn this off. And that should allow me to snap it and it'll all move. It didn't move. We found a bug. There we go, fixed it. I was the bug. So now we have basically a different size screen. We can move this up a little bit. And if I wanted the text to change, let me actually back out. I can turn off fix width, fix height. And now this time when I drag this inwards, the text is actually getting a little bit smaller for a smaller size display. So there's a lot of flexibility with repeat grids. And again, it'll probably not get you 100% of the way, but it'll definitely get you about 80%. I can move this over here, place this, and that's looking pretty good. Now, of course, we can take this even further and we can make it a little bit smaller. So we can drag this over. Let's say I wanted a phone screen. Again, responsive resize is on. Now in this case, we probably don't want, on a phone, we probably don't want 3 of those across. So in that case, I'm going to turn off fix width, drag this over like that. And then if I wanted to, I can actually go in and adjust the size of some of this stuff. And because we're using a repeat grid, it does update throughout the entire thing. So maybe I'll want 1 on each row. Okay, grab my repeat grid, move that inwards, move this to the center, make this larger, adjust the spacing a little bit, make sure I can see everything over here. There we go. Move this button down. And the location is right there. There we go. Perfect. So now we have, all of a sudden, we have 3 different size displays, one for a desktop on the web, probably one for tablet or a much smaller desktop, and then one for phone. And we didn't really have to do much. We just used responsive resize within Adobe XD, along with some cool repeat grid elements. And hey, Brian, welcome. Kathleen is here, welcome as well. So we just used responsive resize, and we basically just grabbed the sides, moved them inwards, and it just did the rest. Again, about 80%. And we also use Creative Cloud libraries, so we can go back to back to Photoshop, make some changes, and then all syncs and just magic happens, right? The last thing I want to show you, and I kind of touched on this as well, is how global edits spawn across the entire document. So we did change the color to blue, but now that I'm looking at it, maybe I'm not a big fan of that blue. But at this point, I have 3 different artboards. So changing that color across all 3 artboards traditionally isn't very easy. But because I saved it as an asset in my assets panel, I can simply right click on it, press edit, and make that change. And again, it distributes across all 3 artboards, which is super cool. So I don't have to go through and make those changes. And it also works with text, and it also works retroactively. So let's say, you know, I'm not a big fan of this font right here, right? But I don't have this saved in my character styles. And I have 3 artboards, and the same font is on all 3. So what I can do is press character styles here, right click, and edit. And let's say I want Comic Sans, because that's a great font. Now it did not distribute here because the size changed with responsive resize. But in that case, I can just press Comic Sans and Comic Sans, and it changes. Now, if you don't want to worry about searching through all of your different artboards, you know, just visually, what you can do is you can go to the Layers panel, Command or Control Y to get there quickly, and we now have our lovely new search field at the top. So if I just want to search for DJ Paco, I can do that, and it shows me all instances of that text throughout all of my artboard. So I can just click on any one of them, make the changes that I need to. I should probably name my artboards. This will be desktop, this will be tablet, and this will be phone. And that'll help me, especially when I'm searching for DJ Paco, it'll help me identify exactly where that instance of that text layer is on my artboards. So that will complete today's challenge. Again, your challenge, if I go over to Behance, is to, bam, create a responsive landing page for a local musician. And again, using responsive resize in Adobe XD, repeat grids, global edits, and even if you don't have Photoshop, you can definitely still open up that PSD file directly in Adobe XD. You don't have to worry about going back to Photoshop. But if you do want something a little bit more, then you have that flexibility of using the Creative Cloud libraries to make those changes. So I hope this all inspires you to create complicated font for a complicated man. Comic Sans is outdated. Comic Sans will never be outdated. It's the best font ever. Hopefully that inspires you, not expires you, to create something awesome today. I'm really looking forward to seeing all of your challenges. And we have a great day planned. We have UI and UX week kicking off today. In just a few minutes, we're gonna have Andrea Hawk and Daniel White hosted by Kevin Lee. That's gonna be a great one. And then Chris Cannon's gonna be bothering me at 11 o'clock right here. And then right after that, we have Johnny Vino and Kevin Lee as well. And we have this through today, tomorrow, and Thursday. It's gonna be a great week. So hope you all enjoyed this. Can't wait to see your projects, and I'll see you all very soon.